Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Under God Project podcast. Together, we are accelerating America to become one nation under God again. So, for those who are new to the podcast, new to the channel, new to the Under God Project family, Under God Project is an initiative to invite God into our national identity. We have a series of experiences for families, congregations, and elected officials. We're going to tell you all about that on this podcast and more. This is podcast number 2, so episode number 2. And where should we start?
Well, I think we should start, obviously, with our introductions, because I don't think they know who we are.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Well, of course, if they're
Right.
first joining, right?
Right. For first-timers, we better introduce ourselves. I think it's a good idea. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. So we are the Thompsons. Welcome, by the way. This is
Howdy,
Andy.
y'all.
I'm Jen.
We didn't say that on the last episode.
didn't,
We do
so
have names. Yes.
Now they know. You didn't miss anything last time.
You missed a lot last time, actually. In episode 1, we covered a lot of ground there. This is episode 2. We're going to be covering some different things, but we'll tell you about that in a second.
Exactly.
You go ahead and finish your thing.
Yeah. Okay. You ready for that?
Yeah, I'm ready for you to finish the I'll do this part. You're good. You're good.
Okay, so anyway, hi to COVID, right? That was not too long ago. About 3 years ago, we decided that we were too sick of restrictions, and we decided to throw caution to the wind and jump in an RV with our 4 crazy children and document it all, because we're crazy like that. We went in search of faith, family, and freedom across America, which we were hoping to find. And we did find it, thankfully, but we did notice along our path that it is quickly diminishing. And we knew that we needed to bring light back to that. So we have created a good number of things, including, as you just saw, a good snippet of our S'mores and Stripes podcast.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, you mean you just showed it off, so you might as well talk about it.
Right. So the S'mores and Stripes podcast, S'mores and Stripes is our, it's part of our journey, but it's so much more. We're finding faith, family, and freedom across America with that podcast.
Right.
It's very family based. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun everywhere we go, but in this one in particular is pretty much all about fun, right? We have a lot of fun with F words. There's just a lot of fun with F words, but we have so many F words. We
won't get into
friends
all
and
of
family
that,
and
but
features and food and fitness and finance and all sorts of different
Florida.
That's a new one. That's quite a new one.
I'll try to
yes.
come up with a new one every time. You never know.
A new F word every time. So S'mores and Stripes, though, yes, you get a closer look at us, the kids, what they do, the homeschool aspect of things, the unit studies, the Sleepy Hollow journey. We talked about that a bunch. Gettysburg.
You get a better insight to who we are and where this is all coming from.
Right.
But another thing that we've also created, of course, is the Under God Project and the Under God Project podcast. Obviously, that's what you're here for.
Right. So Under God Project podcast, like I said, together as, community and with you guys and with us, we are accelerating America to become one nation under God again. And in the first episode, we covered how God makes families, families make nations.
Right.
And it's our job, calling, task, responsibility, and accountability to make our culture, to make America what it is. It's really us as families, right? So God makes families, families make nations. From Adam to Enoch to Isaac to Jacob to today. It starts with the identities that we have in our individual families, and how we bring God into our homes, into our families, and into our national identity. It's not so much from a doctrinal basis, right? It's not like, hey, my church is different than your church. You should be a member of mine. I should be, whatever of yours. That's not what we're talking about. We're no one's pastor, prophet, preacher. That's all you. But similar to the founding fathers and similar to the way that our Declaration of Independence and Constitution is made up, we can recognize that we all have beliefs in God and have an understanding of who God is. And although they might be different and unique, we can all still be one nation under God.
Right.
So not looking to have anybody, not looking to preach a gospel in particular, except of course, I say three things about that. I don't care what you call them. I want you to pray to God, right? I prefer that you do that in the name of Jesus Christ, but that's up to you, right? I, pray to God, and He'll tell you what to call them, right? As long as it's biblically centered, you'll figure it out.
Right.
He'll tell you what to call them, right? Read your scriptures. Read as many of them as you can. Read them and He'll tell you which ones are important, right? And go to church. Go to as many churches as you can. Go to church until He tells you to stop, right? If you're praying to God, if you develop a personal relationship with God, if you're reading His scriptures and seeking more knowledge, He'll guide you to the scriptures that are the most important to you and the most impactful to you. If you're going to church and if you keep going to church, He'll tell you where to stop, right? And He'll tell you where to keep going. One of the things that...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's up to you. Go ahead, babe.
Well, I was going to say that's kind of a perfect segue into what we're actually talking about today.
Correct. So one of the things that Jen and I started doing while we were on our journey, or while we were on, traveling the country, is we go to church every week, every Sunday. We go to our church. Yeah. Absolutely. No questions asked. But at least once a month, and we used to do it more frequently than this, and it's kind of gone up and down in frequency and stuff. But
we plan to get back into the rhythm of it again, but ultimately.
Right. But we try to visit our neighbor's church. Excuse me. We try to visit our neighbor's church for a variety of different reasons. One, we love God and we love His children, and we want to worship with our neighbors, worship with them the way that they worship, right? And see God through their eyes. And there's a lot of truth that's shared there, and there's a lot of learning that's shared there, and it's a great habit. It's a great thing to try and do and experience, and we've learned a lot, we've experienced a lot, and it's helped to even deepen our faith in God, develop a personal relationship with God, and strengthen our own faith, even in our own beliefs. And so what we do, what we're going to talk about today, is kind of part of that. But again, we can be one nation under God with a variety of different religions, with a variety of different beliefs, all biblically centered, right? All biblically associated. So okay, so what we're going to talk about today is, and we might do 2 podcasts in one, we might do 2 subjects in one, just depends on how much we can get through. But the first one we're going to talk about is the Under God Project phases, so the activities, right? Yep. So Under God Project is a series of activities for families, congregations, and elected officials, right? To invite God into our national identity, to accelerate America to become one nation under God again. So that's the first part we're going to talk about. And if we got time today, then we'll talk about how some of the mechanics on how the compact is made. I'll tell you a little bit about the compact in a little bit. So the 3 phases are my family under God, our county under God, one nation under God. So my family under God is a in-home family experience, right? It's a beautiful experience where you create a family heirloom. When you're done, you make promises to each other. You invite God into those promises, and then you end up creating like I said, a family heirloom that can hang on your wall and you can pass down to generations. It's a beautiful thing, and I'll tell you about that in a little bit. The Our County under God is a congregational activity. It's a multi-congregational activity. It's an event, right? Tell you about the details here in a little bit, but what multi-congregational activity that we come together and we recognize that the strength of the county is through our congregations, right? The strength of our nation is from our homes and the way that our congregations come together. And we sign it. We have a similar compact that we do in the family. I'll explain that in a second. But then, there's a similar compact there, and we go over principles, and there's a fundraiser involved in that. It's exciting. And then the one nation under God, that's where we have a state compact that essentially says that, one, the kingdom does not close. Two, God is always essential. And three, the family. Are we getting a little hiccups on there? Okay. The computer's having a hard time today. Three, the family is the most basic unit of our society, is the most basic unit of our state. And if we can enrich the family, then we can be a more successful state and county and nation. And so let's jump into the family side of things. So the in-home family experience that we have is our My Family Under God Compact. You see that on our wall right here, right? You can see that it's hung up on our wall. This one in particular is actually, it is ours, but ours was signed, and our media guy has ours right now.
This is not ours. It's not our personalized one.
It's not our personalized one.
But
correct.
It is the clean one that is, still pristine.
It is the clean one that you will receive when you make an order.
You won't get this one. You don't get it.
Come on,
you
now.
get one like it.
You get one like it, exactly. This is what they will look like when they show up in your home. Okay, so what happens? What you do? The My Family Under God Compact. Okay, as we talked about in the last episode, we talked about how a compact, the Pilgrims that landed in Plymouth created a compact that established God in the identity of America in our first governing document. This is very similar to that. So the experience goes like this. You make the order online. I think we mess around with pricing, but it's a great in-home family experience. You buy it, it shows up in the mail. You open the compact up, and in there you've got a whole bunch of different things. You've got a quill pen set, like here on the wall right here. You've got the
gold leafing.
The gold leafing, thank you. The gold leafing and a little bit of glue. Oh, I got my notes right here. I keep forgetting about it. And the glue. Okay, so what you do is you look over the verbiage. You determine whether or not that's something that you guys want to pray over. Not everybody wants to pray over it. It's fine. But then there's a section right there for personalization. And that's where you get to write down the promises that you want to make to each other, right? And that's where I think God can be involved no matter what family you are, no matter what kind of religion you are, or what kind of, whatever that is that you're making a pledge to one another, right? The signers of the Declaration of Independence, after they wrote the Declaration of Independence and signed it, then they also made a pledge to one another. They pledged to one another their lives, fortunes, and sacred honors. Yeah. And as your family grows, as everybody's family grows, new people come into the family. They come in and they grow up and get older and things. But to have a volunteer pledge where the children come in and put new promises in there, it's something that can grow with you over time. To give you an example, do you want to share the example that the Johnsons put together, like what they put down?
Go ahead.
Sure.
You were actually there for that experience. I was unfortunately not there for that, but I have enjoyed hearing all the stories about it.
Yeah. So it's one of our first families that bought the compact and put it in their home and established it as part of a pillar of their home, in that personalization section, right? Yep. In that part that says to that end we promise together as a family to continually fill in the blank, right? One of the first things they put down, and I think it's pretty common, but they said, to always love one another, right? To always love each other, to always try to show love to one another. Well, that's great, but something very personal to them was morning hugs. Mm-hmm. And that to me was just so tender, right? Because that's something that's unique to them, and it means something special to them, right? It means that, and maybe we can have them on the podcast sometime to talk about it, but it means that every morning that they'll start the morning with filling up their love cup, right? Before they get into other types of communication and the bickering and the order giving.
They're prioritizing their life.
But they prioritize love first. Right. So love is the first communication that they give to one another, no matter what happens throughout the day. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was so special. And that's something that they put on their compact, signed, and hung on their wall. And that's something that they want to maintain with each other all the time, among other things like doing dishes and all that other stuff. You know, like,
I don't think they put dishes on there.
They did not. They did not. They talked about it, and it's really cute. But they didn't put dishes on there. But they did put down always love one another, morning hugs, and a few other things that were quite personal to them, and was very special. But they did let me. I did ask them if I could share that part with them, and they said that was fine. So things like that, and on ours we've done very similar things. You can put down things like, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, before we did ours, we definitely took some time to ask the children specifically. We were like, okay, so what promises do you want to make to each other, to God, to make sure that everyone feels the love of the family and feels the love from God? You know what? That one turned off, actually. I hate that. But anyway, so our children made the decision to include love and kindness. And that's something that we talk about all the time because, you know, siblings, you gotta love siblings, especially at this age where they're constantly bickering and, you know, fighting over toys and all the little things.
Right.
But it's really nice to hear them come up with the things that we try to like reinforce all the time, thinking that, okay, at some point they will get this. But I love when they come up with this on their own. But love and kindness was their number one. And I know that one of the things that I wrote down that's been a big part of my life for the past couple of years is making sure to be able to find the joy in all struggles. Because that's one of the hardest things that I've found, that God gives us all these struggles and he gives us these storms. But only through God are we able to get through that with his tools. So I know that in each of these struggles, we have the capability to find joy because there is joy in all things. So are we able to find the joy in that struggle as much as we are able to find it when it's done? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I remember writing that down and going through that and talking about that with you. And so there's this opportunity for every family in there to write down what is important to them and prioritize it. And that journey itself of discovering what would be important to us, what do we want to put down, what do we want to promise to one another, just finding those types of things in there are that by itself is a journey. It invites the children and mom and dad into into that discussion, and then it takes a little bit of prompting, a little bit. It's not like a church thing where you go and maybe the prayers are already there for you, or the things, the covenants, or the things are already there,
right.
You know, and you're like, okay, I'll go along with that. The doctrine's already laid before me, right? You know, this section allows you to be able to look at that in your family individually and say, okay, in this moment right now, what do we need? Right? What do we need? In another podcast, probably the next one, we're actually going to talk about all the language that we've used in the compact,
which is huge. It was very thought through.
Oh yeah.
And there was a lot of painstaking hours that went into it. A lot of study and a lot of prayer.
Yeah, it actually took about 3 weeks to write. And the reason why we're not leading with that is because, one, the language was, we'll talk about it in a little bit more detail then, but the language that was selected was used to be as doctrinally inclusive as possible, because it's not a doctrinal document.
Right.
It's an inspired document, similar to the way that the Declaration of Independence or constitutional things recognize a lot of different faiths inside of the biblically centered faiths.
Right.
And so we went through several different drafts, and we'll talk about that later. But it's not there to declare a particular doctrine,
right,
except for the assumption of the Bible.
Right.
So we build from the Bible, but we're not creating a religion. We're not a church.
Of course, but it's
I'm
based
not a pastor.
on
I'm not a prophet.
Judeo-Christianity, right?
Exactly. So when you read it, a lot of the language is beautiful, and it's, you know, I don't know anybody that would look at that and go, I don't know about that. You know, like it is it's still beautiful. But now, for some, they may not want to necessarily pray over it, and they may not necessarily, do that kind of a thing with it. That's okay, right? That's what that next section is about. That next section is about for you to write down what promises and pledges you want to make to each other, right? Again, that reflects the activities that the founders did with the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
So there's that aspect of it, and then there's the signing aspect of it. Okay, so the signing, you get a really cool. You want to actually switch that? That camera right there. You actually get a really cool feather pen set. You want to go that way? Can I do that?
You wanted that one?
Yeah, can I do this one? You get like a really cool feather pen set, and we might change these sets out, but they're going to be very, very similar.
Yeah,
this is the one that we're using right now.
The essential idea is this.
Correct. This is the one we're using right now.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, it's a feather pen. It's really a blast to use. You dip the ink and the quill and all the little nibs and stuff like that. It's a really good actual introduction to calligraphy and writing. Tactile, something that's tactile. We live in such a digital age, and things are so distant and can be so fake that we really wanted to do something that was tactile, was real.
Right. Right. I think one of the things we also wanted to mention was what the going forward plan is, right? So we've got the family compact. Mm-hmm. So what's going to be our next step?
Oh, yeah. Well, so the family compact, I wanted to kind of finish out that because we've got to talk about the hand printing.
Okay.
Right. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pieces to it, but the in-home family experience is, again, you order it, it shows up in the mail, you sit down, you think about the types of things you want to pledge to each other, how you want to add to it. And then the signing process is, you get the inkwell, the feather pen, you sign together. Mm-hmm. And for the kids, those that either can't sign, don't want to sign, or whatever, you get gold leafing.
Right.
And so you put a little bit of glue on your hand, and then you put the hand down, and you lift the hand up, and then you put the gold leafing right over that. It dries quick, by the way. And then you use a little feather pen to floosh it away. Like, what's the word? Swoosh it. You swoosh it. You swoosh it.
Swoosh is a good.
You swoosh it away.
Word. It's a very sophisticated.
It's a very sophisticated word.
With that.
Yeah, and you swoosh it away, and the handprint kind of magically appears, right?
No.
It's so much fun. It really is. It's a blast because it's gold and it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of part of that process, and then you get to sign around that, right? So with our kids, we did.
We actually have it.
Yeah, I think we do. Our kids, we signed that together, and Charlotte and Henry put their handprints down, and so there's the gold leafing in there, and then William and Betty learned how to use a calligraphy pen and all that stuff. It was a blast. It was an absolute blast. So Jen's gonna step out for a quick second and come right back. Oh, I think she's fixing the camera. Okay, all right. So then, so after that, then there's the. Well, actually, before I get on with that, what I want to talk about there is, so we got the words. There's on every compact, there's a seal on the top. Now, you all can see it probably from this angle here. You can see that all the way up there. There's that seal. It's about a 2-inch. It's about almost a 3-inch seal, actually. But what that is it's a wax seal. It's a handmade wax seal. Now, I think we showed this clip already, but the compact itself is handmade, right?
Every painstaking inch of it.
Yes, exactly. So I screen print it. We'll get into the details in a little bit, but it is handmade.
Yeah.
Right.
That's going to be a whole separate podcast. I feel like there's a lot to talk about there.
But yeah, there is. So that's handmade. The seals are handmade. The frames are made in the USA. Even the wrapping that comes, at least at this point, the wrapping where it comes with, that is handmade. The pen and the ink are bought, whatever. But we do ship them. We make them here in our garage. At least we make them for now in our garage.
Give it a month.
You can, you're welcome to get us out of the garage.
Let's not get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. Anyways, so that's the first step, is to take the in-home family experience with the My Family Under God Compact.
Right.
And that is something that you can just forever have. An heirloom that only gets better with time. As people come over and say, "What's that on your wall?" Like, that's amazing. It says, "God bless this American family in the name of God, Amen." Like, what's that all about? You know?
Well, and then, and not to mention, it's not even on ours yet, but there's going to be a QR code that sticks on it, right?
Correct. Yes, we are getting that. We're getting that. A sticker that goes on the bottom of your compact, of the frame and all that.
Right.
And then when neighbors and friends come by, they can bleep
Snap
the
a
QR
picture of
code,
it
and then the words of the compact comes up, and then we might do some other crazy digital things. I come from the digital techie world, and I kind of resent it in a lot of ways.
Shows.
Right, exactly. Well, I know how fake it is, and so I wanted to create something that it was lasting and forever, and even though it's made of paper, something that's lasting and forever, and says that in this moment, this is something that's we don't have a printer that does this, that
Right.
we don't run it off on a printer or anything. I make it myself with my hands.
Yep.
With ink and mess and like all that. My hands get dirty. Like I get dirty with this thing. Like I really do.
All sorts of fun stuff in there.
Right. And so, okay, so the My Family Under God Compact is, that's complete and that's done. Now, there's a lot of different challenges and badges and things you can earn on the app.
Right.
So when the box comes in and it shows up and you open it up, one of the first things you'll have is a little thank you note. And there's an invitation there to download our app, right? And that'll go through different iterations and things. And so I'd like to show you a picture of it, but it's going to change over time. But in the app, there's also different challenges that you can do, whether they're just in the group or whatever, but you earn different badges, and there's gamification for doing things like finding excuses to say the Pledge of Allegiance, saying the Pledge of Allegiance with no comma between one nation and under God, right? Just saying it without the breath between them, right?
Yep.
And all those different things, right? And so it's a blast. It's an opportunity really to, again, invite God into the things that you do, finding excuses and reasons to bring America closer to one nation under God, right? Starting in your home. The next step is our county under God. Now, this is really fun. It's just as fun as the My Family Under God, and quite frankly, this is where we started.
Yeah, I was gonna say this was our starting point quite a while ago, actually. When we first started talking about this, was probably about 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And do you want me to talk about it, or do you want to continue?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So the original idea was to do this walk of faith, right? Mm-hmm. And this walk of faith was, darn.
Do you want to fix that while I update him? If it's a quick fix, I can do
All
this
right,
part.
Go ahead. I'll let him talk.
Yeah, we're having technical difficulties, and Jen is the. Whoa.
It's okay. Hello.
Jen does the cameras.
It's not working still.
No, yours isn't working yet. Okay. We're new to podcasting, okay? Like, if you can't tell, it's episode 2. Don't worry. Hey, Elon Musk had a worse problem, okay? So let's just. It must be the server. It must be the server that's burning up. We have so many people that are subscribing to our podcast that the cameras don't work. Okay, so our county under God. Now that phase is all about congregations. It's all about the power of the congregations coming together. Okay.
Sorry, crossing it again.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's all about our congregations coming together. So on every, in our travels, one of the things that we've learned is that on every street that there's one church in America, on every American street where there's one church,
right,
there within a 3-mile radius,
there are 2 more.
There are 2 more. There's always 2 more.
Sometimes there's a lot more.
Sometimes there's a lot more. Sometimes
in
on a
fact,
single.
it's frequent that we've seen several more on one street within
across
a
the
1
street.
mile radius.
Exactly. And I think it's a beautiful thing. It's one of the things that I don't want to say you only see it in America, but it is something that is part of our identity. Is that every other on Sunday we all go to our individual congregations, we all go to our individual churches, but every other day of the week we walk on the same roads,
right?
We go to the same schools, so we do have differences on Sunday, but every other day of the week we all come together, we all operate together, right? So a walk of faith is our as our opportunity to come together and celebrate certain things. So this is kind of important, and it's something that struck me really deeply as soon as I found it out. But in 2019, this is the year before COVID, 2019, more for the first time in American history. Again, this is the first time in American history, more churches closed than opened nationwide.
That is crazy.
Again, this is the first time. There's nothing else that has happened that has been the first time in American history that has happened nationally.
Yeah.
To so many things of something that is so deep. And I think this is something that's drastically overlooked.
Like even during the Depression, you would think something like that would happen.
Right. It didn't happen during the Depression, not during the Civil War, not during
The First
World War
World,
One,
yeah.
World War Two.
Exactly.
Like for every year since we've been measuring it, realistically since like 1620-ish, right? I mean, I don't know when we started measuring it, but whenever we started measuring it, like we have always had more churches constantly opening as more births were coming into the world, as people were coming in. We needed more churches.
Yeah.
We have always been a kingdom growing country,
Right.
right? But for the first time in American history, the kingdom of God legitimately, measurably shrank,
Right.
right? And that number,
That is huge, by the way. It is huge.
that number not only decreased, but it flipped before COVID.
Right.
And then COVID happened.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like we needed more reasons for COVID to make life harder.
This had nothing to do with COVID. This was 2019.
Right.
This was 2 years after Jeff Sessions put in this thing at the executive office, this Freedom of Religion Protection Act, like this whole thing. Like this was after that, right? We had every opportunity, excuse to maintain religious freedom, but the apathy for assembly just set in, and
there it goes.
there was it. So that number flipped for the first time. That's significant because it's part of it's the root of our identity.
Right. Well, no, it makes sense why during COVID,
Right.
church was no longer called essential.
Correct.
It was one of the first things closed. Yet bars and other non-reputable places stayed open.
Right, because those are
entire time.
essential.
Of
right,
course they are.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's your reason. Like it stands to reason why churches were closed during COVID, because in a crisis, if you're not using church when it's not a crisis, then you're not going to use it when it is a crisis.
Right.
You're going to come to other things, and that's exactly what we saw through COVID. Is that nationally we were more concerned about how. Even churches were more concerned how to be a good citizen rather than how to be a good child of God.
Well, not just
Right.
a good child of God, but to be a preacher of God.
Correct. Yeah.
If God chose them to be a preacher or a leader of
Right.
a specific congregation, that's
Right.
their obligation, right?
Right.
That's their obligation to those children of the kingdom.
Right.
So to allow their doors to be closed or to allow them to be permanently shut.
Right. Right.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people who don't really have a choice.
Right.
Things get cut, things are no longer funded, whatever needs
Right.
to happen, and they're thrown out or whatever the circumstance may be. But to give credence to the fact that those doors are allowed to be shut,
Right.
that's crazy.
Well, that's the thing, is who's the one doing the shutting, right? Who's
Right.
the one closing the doors, right?
The sheriff of Nottingham, right?
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a second. So, and that's exactly it. To every, it's not that churches close their own doors, right? That's one thing, but to have a government that we put together, that we're the ones who create. The government is just the civility between you and me. Like that's all that the government's not a building, it's not a thing, right? It is the belief system that we have, that the papers that we put together, the words that we put on papers we will both adhere to. It's just a promise it's the civility between you and me.
Right.
Like that's it, right? And we're the ones in charge of making sure that civility is something that pleases God, is something that we're the ones who create it, right? And so I'm kind of losing my train of thought because there's kind of just so much there, but so that's what the walk of faith is all about. The walk of faith takes multiple congregations in a multi-congregation setting, and we come together and we first say that the kingdom doesn't close, right? That that faith in God is always essential, right? And those that come, there's a similar compact that they have. That experience kind of maintains, whether it's the pastors that sign it together or the congregational members and the pastors that sign it together. But they sign, again, they pledge to one another that never again will I stay silent
Right.
while the people I elect seek to close down your church.
Right.
Right? It's one thing if between my pastor and God, they determine that closing is okay. That's up to them. Right? That's between them and God. And quite frankly, it's their accountability too. I do not want to be in that position.
Right.
Like God is telling you, hey, you didn't know what to do in a circumstance and you decided to close my doors. Right? Like that's a real hard shoulder thing to put on your shoulders, right? To say, yes, I saw something that I couldn't see. Well, I could.
Well, and maybe there's
like,
other extenuating circumstances we
correct.
don't understand, and that's totally understandable.
Correct. That decision belongs between the pastor
Right.
and God.
Right.
It doesn't belong between the sheriff of Nottingham, and that has government has nothing to do with that.
Right.
So that's part of what that means, right? Is to create a kingdom county, right? The county does not close the kingdom does not close in this county,
Right.
And as congregations, we get together and we say and we sign a document. That document is then hung on the walls of the churches that participate. And the reason for that is when courage is visible, it's contagious.
Right.
When it's local, it's accountable. And when it's endowed by God, it's unstoppable. It's divine. It's endowed by God, right? And so it's blessed by God. So we have the opportunity to come together, make those compacts with one another. An interesting thing about that event as well is it's a great opportunity for fundraising and bringing much more awareness to the issues that those churches are dealing with. So, like we said, COVID, just really desecrated the church attendance, right? And massive amount of churches just shut down all over the place. One of the things you want to keep in mind is churches close all the time as populations move in and move out, and as regulations change and as funding changes, as you mentioned.
Right.
Churches are going to close locally, right? That's one thing. It's one thing to drive by and see an abandoned church. It's another thing to see the numbers, like nationwide numbers, say on this year, this was the first time that the kingdom measurably, those numbers flipped.
Right.
And the kingdom began to shrink specifically, right? And I want to live in a country, and I want to be part of the solution in a country where the kingdom of God is growing to all of the churches,
Right.
not just my own, right? I want to help the kingdom of God grow with all of the churches, and I think most Americans when they hear that, they want to participate in that too, right? And that's why we have that our county under God. Now, like I said, for every I don't know if I mentioned it yet, but because I say it so much, for every federal edict, for every Fauci law or whatever it is that comes out of Washington, and every state law, there's always a county cooperation component, right? And that's what we put at the county level, because across the nation, that Sheriff of Nottingham signature that we keep talking about, that little signature that goes on the sign that says you're going to be closed today, you can't go to church today. That signature, it wasn't the name of the person that signed that document wasn't Fauci.
Nope.
Wasn't president, whichever one.
Nope.
And it wasn't even your governor.
Nope.
Right? It was your county judge. I think that's really impactful, because during that time we were traveling during that time, so we got to talk to enough judges to understand kind of where they were coming from in a lot of ways. Those that were connected to to the rest of the population, those that were connected to the citizens in the county, were very, very aware of what the county citizens wanted. They were very, very aware of whether or not that's something that they wanted to do, shut their churches down or not. Right. But most of them, the vast majority of county judges had no idea what they really wanted. And so they would look to higher governments or look to larger governments for the answer. And of course, the answer across the nation was shut down.
Yep.
There were plenty of example county judges that chose to stay open. They just said, I can't enforce this. I can't enforce this, law, edict, standard, or whatever. And so they set a really great example by continuing to stay open,
right,
and saying, and eventually some states like the state of Tennessee and a couple other states have laws that have all made it all the way to the legislature and passed the legislature that essentially say the kingdom of God, the churches are always essential.
Right. So they're no longer on the list, right?
They're not even on the list.
Right.
Churches are not even on the list. They're not even on the list of essential things.
You can't even consider closing them.
Right.
It's just not an option.
It's like closing down a person. Like what is this?
Right.
Like the church is as sovereign as the soul.
Right.
Like it is. They're not closing. Right. And so that also happened in many places across the nation, including
right.
California. And I was really surprised, but including California, in a lot of California counties, there were plenty of county judges that said, no, we don't need to be closing. I mean, I get it. We all get it. It's a virus we can't see. I know, but
right.
God can.
Yep.
And so if anything, we need more of that in our lives.
Right.
Well, that's up to the pastor. I'm going to leave it up to the pastor. If God wants to close his church down, he'll close it down. I'm not going to close it for him.
Right.
Right. And it was just about that simple, and some of them got a lot of flack. Some of them really didn't.
There were
didn't
quite
get
a
any
few,
back and forth.
if I remember correctly, there were quite a few church leaders who were thrown into prison for keeping their doors open.
Yeah, there were. And that's the thing, is in those counties there was that restriction. Now it became a Sheriff of Nottingham situation.
Right.
It became this whole Robin Hood situation,
right.
where you're Friar Tuck is thrown to prison because he's doing the work of the Lord.
Right.
Like what
he's
is this?
Not listening to these silly regulations who try to rule what God is allowed to do. Right.
Right. Exactly. That's just not a position for us to be in, and it's up to us. It's up to us as families to say, no, God is sovereign. Right. No, kingdom of God is a kingdom doesn't close.
No.
And it's not government that closes it. God will close his doors if he wants them closed. Right. Okay. And we respect that. And so the walk of faith is an opportunity where we start on one congregation, and sometimes we get bigger as we go to the other congregations. But either way, we come together and we review the promises that we can make nationally, the divine, regardless of doctrinal, but the divine promises we make as a nation through the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Mayflower Compact, etc. And then we make our own compact with one another that, like I said, essentially says the kingdom does not close, and never again will I stay silent while the people that I elect seek to close down your church. Right. A lot of people are hurt by that, on top of you could get into the numbers of all the depression and suicide and all that other stuff that occurred, and that's horrifying.
It's just continuing to skyrocket.
Right. So then we get into, how are we doing on time?
We're getting pretty high up there.
We're getting pretty high up on there. You all getting tired? Let me finish up the One Nation, and then we'll actually switch the other stuff. We'll just call this the One Podcast, and then we'll switch to the other one.
We'll do another one.
We'll do another one.
We know we like to talk. Well, he likes to talk.
You do a great job talking.
I do a great job listening.
Okay.
I'm the listening half.
Got it.
Represent.
Okay, so the One Nation. Okay,
yeah.
Now it's going to take a while to get to that point in each of the states. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it'll be a lot faster.
Hopefully, it'll go a lot faster.
We do have language. We have the verbiage for the Our County Under God compacts. That's ready to rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
The One Nation Under God is where, I'm sorry, our One Nation Under God,
yeah.
which is which is at the state level,
right?
When there's enough counties about 20% of the counties have at least have adopted the our county under God compact, then the states have the opportunity to come in and say, I mean, I guess governors can just pull it right up right away to say, the kingdom of God is always essential, and this compact is something new for us. It reflects all of the promises that we make and the blessings that we make in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and it already reflects our laws. There's nothing new in it,
Right.
so they can adopt that very quickly. But it's very similar. It's an event where now we're incorporating executive level civic leadership, right? To be able to say that the state, in this state, we will be one nation under God. We respect all the language of the Constitution. The kingdom does not close, and the family is the biblical centered family, the nuclear family, is the most central part of our society,
Right.
and we will do all that we can to protect that and protect that structure and support that structure. And so, we want to invite governors everywhere to adopt that as soon as they can, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that way we can do that. Now, the goal is to get as much of this done as we can before 2026,
Right.
because again, like we said in the last podcast, 2026 marks 250 years of signing the Declaration of Independence.
Well, and wouldn't it be incredible if in 2026 that we actually got our current president to sign the One Nation Under God Compact?
It would be absolutely incredible. That would be very interesting to see what would we do at a federal level. I think that
If we could get all the state legislatures and the president to come together
Executive
and
level,
sign
right.
them. Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel like that would be
Well, that would be an amazing
incredible.
accomplishment. That would be an amazing accomplishment, even if it were to just have a similar legislative approach to say the new cadence for saying the Pledge of Allegiance is without a comma,
Right.
right? Like
Just
it's
that small little change, I think, would be a huge difference.
right. There's a new cadence that just says, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. There's a whole thing with that. As we separate one nation and under God, we become much more divisible. We become much more, liberty and justice is for some and not for all.
Yeah.
Right. We see that absolutely today. The flag does not stand, and the republic does not stand, and the flag does not fly.
Right.
But when we are one nation under God,
Right.
when we are one nation under God, liberty and justice is a promise for everyone.
Yeah.
We are indivisible. Means we're not divided, right? Not just means that we're not divided, but we're not factored down into numbers and things, because we know that our identity is something that is from the divine. It is
Right.
something is providential. So we're not capable of being divisible by factors and numbers and demographics and races and all this other stuff. But when we are one nation, maybe under God, maybe, I don't know what that next phrase is. I don't really mean it. Like when we divide our nation from God,
Right.
we are absolutely divisible. The flag does not fly. But when we are one nation under God, the flag flies. We are indivisible, and our nation and the republic by which the flag means does stand.
Well, and there's a lot of people who have taken out even the words under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right, exactly. And when Dwight Eisenhower put that under God in as a law, which by the way was a law was presented to Congress first, right? A Democrat from Michigan started that. A Democrat from Michigan suggested it.
Go figure.
Was the first one, right? Was the first person to propose it, and it was very quickly adopted by his Republican colleagues.
Right.
So this was something that the nation wanted to do fast, right? To distinguish themselves from, again, what was happening in the Iron Curtain, or distinguish themselves from communism and socialism and that which pulls God and divinity out of our national identity. By pulling it away from us individually, it takes it away from us collectively,
Right.
And so it was met with an absolute sure. Like, yeah, that, of course. Yes. Right. And it was pushed through Congress very quickly with little, if any, pushback. I don't know if there was any pushback at all, but Dwight Eisenhower recognized very quickly. He was like, yep, every child in every school will now recognize, now has the opportunity to recognize God in our national identity. And it's something that we all want to do.
Right.
Even though we have, again, we may have doctrinal differences as to its preciseness, right? If we're all biblically based and if we're all interested in inviting God into our national identity, then God will bless us.
I mean, if you think about it, the whole founding of our country was based on the foundation of God.
Absolutely.
That was the whole
right.
reason they came here, because they wanted to worship God.
Right.
They wanted to worship God the way that they knew they were supposed to. And even when they didn't agree on how they were supposed to worship God or what specifically they were supposed to do, they were able to continue to worship freely in their own areas.
Right.
So that's why we have states to begin with. And that's a whole different rant to go down. But
we can talk some more. They're not rants. They're called
Sorry.
podcasts.
Okay. There's an official reason to rant now.
Yeah, exactly. I got a mic and I got a camera most of the time.
Right.
Mine's the only one that works. You want to switch spots?
Hey, mine's working at the moment. Don't jinx it.
We can switch spots if you want to switch spots.
Nope.
Yeah, no. I mean, God is in everything that we do. I think there's significant reason why the smallest amount of our currency, the penny, has exactly right there. Yep. The penny has two things. One, it has Abraham Lincoln on it, right? But probably even more important, not probably, but definitely more important than that. It says, "In God we trust." Right. Well, all of our currency does. Right. It's a different discussion about our digital currency, but right, that's a different story. But our, all of our currency reflects "In God we trust" for a variety of different reasons, because the value of that currency really requires trust with each other and trust in God. But you had something you wanted to say.
Well, I was going to say, only in recent months, years, they've started minting the coin in a way that it says "In God we trust," but now it is behind the head.
Yeah, there's that thing that's going on.
They've turned
the
head,
like,
and I don't know
head.
if they did that on purpose. But it's hard to believe that they wouldn't have done that on purpose, because it's kind of blatantly obvious.
There are some things that you're just kind of like, okay, come on now.
I mean,
I get it. Probably not. No, you guys didn't do that on purpose.
No. Why would you go out of your way to spend so much money to change it?
Yeah, why would you just what?
I don't know.
Why would you even flip it?
Anyway,
why?
That's beside the point.
It's a kind of a different thing. You're going to find out how crazy we are. No.
So, one nation under God, compact. Yes. Let's come back to that idea.
So the state compact, the state level is something that we hope to see. The state compact is something that we hope to see in capitals across the nation, as many capitals as will do that
by 2026, if possible, which would be
absolutely.
Amazing.
By 2026, as many of those as we can, and it's in God's hands. It really is.
Absolutely.
I think we have a lot of ability to, and I don't want to say advertise, but the movement that we create with you and with your neighbors and your friends and your family and all those that participate, not just as fans on the podcast, not just as people that like the content and like the sound of my sultry voice and all that other stuff, but the way that
does he put you to sleep? Because he puts me to sleep. His voice is like,
okay, good night. But like those, we designed the podcast and the steps and the plan and all that stuff so that we can do something.
Exactly.
So that we can do something.
We don't have to sit idly by and watch it happen.
Listen to another talking head.
Well, or vote for a politician. Like, is that all I can do? Honestly, there's got to be more that I can do, even in the small steps. Even when I have such a busy life and a busy schedule, and I've got kids, I've got a demanding job, I've got a demanding boss, I've got disabilities, whatever it is.
Amen.
You've got a way to participate. You've got a way to make a difference. As small or as big as it can possibly be.
This goes right back down to why we created a compact from the beginning.
Right.
Because we had thought so many different things, like what could we do? Well, do we want to create a 501c4, right? Like a C4 is like a political action organization. It's still tax-free, right? It doesn't pay taxes. Your donations, whenever you donate, you still have to claim taxes on that. But a C4 is like a Black Lives Matter, or is like there's a variety of them there's a variety of even C3s that have C4 arms, right? And we realized that you don't need to.
Nope.
One, if it's biblically centered, you're doing everything within the law. The law is already on your side. So we don't 501c4s and political action things are for those that the law's not on their side. And you have to go outside of the law to do something, to make a change. Well, first of all, the soul is already sovereign. Our soul needs no permission to worship God.
Yeah.
We need no permission from the government to act freely,
Right.
and independently, right? We create the laws that restrict ourselves, right? So if we create the laws, then we have the ability to change them, to collect ourselves together, to assemble,
Right.
to speak, to make promises with one another. These aren't legal promises,
Right.
It's art, and it's beautiful, and it's a personal promise with you and God. I don't need the government's permission for me to tell my wife, my family, and my God, I promise to act a certain way.
Correct.
Right? I promise to act a certain way regardless of, I don't need the government's permission to do that. We are the government, right?
The government of the people, right?
Right.
We the people.
Right. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Right? We're the ones who create that, and therefore we're the ones that are accountable to that,
Precisely.
ultimately. And so that's why we decided that we would make these in-home family events, these in-home family experiences, and we wouldn't do, step into the whole political action stuff.
Right.
We still have that 501c3. You can donate to that if you'd like to donate to that. That does, we do use that if we need to, but the best way we can do this is to do things that people are already accustomed to, and recognize that we already have the sovereignty. We don't need permission, right? And it's the same thing with our county. The strength of the county. Like I said, I think I said this earlier, I'm not really sure, but the strength of the county doesn't lie in the school boards, in the school board presidents, and all that other stuff. Those are important. School board presidents, county sheriffs, county DA, county judge, and county commissioner. Those are some main, some key roles that you really want to watch out for. Exactly. You're the one who elects them.
Yeah.
We're the ones who elect them.
Right.
So you want, constitutional sheriffs. You want good non-Soros DAs, right? Like non-dark money DAs. It doesn't have to be Soros. Like, you want to make sure that you're participating in the election, and that money's coming in, for the DA, that money is local money that's supporting that person. Right?
You want to make sure that all the people you're voting for share your morals.
Or at least live in your space, right? Like at least live there. There's
that's
some
a helpful tip.
It's a helpful thing. And perhaps those that are supporting them also have interest in your space, right, in a positive way, like local money, right? That's kind of a different thing, I guess. We don't really get too much into that, but county, constitutional county sheriffs, good county DAs, county commissioners. Those are the ones that control your election laws and election boards, and particularly in this case, in the case of the churches, county judges. They're the CEOs of your county.
Right.
Across the nation, those names kind of move around a little bit. Most of them have county judges, but the power of the county comes with the congregations in mass.
Yep.
Right. Not one in particular, but all together. Right. Because that's where the value set comes from. That's where the same value set comes from.
Right.
Right. And we all believe in the same value set, and so therefore we can all agree to the same type of principles. Therefore, when we come together, we don't have to, there's a massive power in that. When you're not participating in a congregation, or if you're anti-biblical for one reason or another, you're really spread out. You're scattered, right? when you're part of a congregation, any congregation, pick one, right?
You can be
and God-
united in one purpose.
Right. God will lead you to one if you keep looking for him, right? There's a lot of commonality in that, and that's where that strength comes from.
Right.
So there's a lot of organizations that kind of follow that mantra as well. You know, My Faith Votes and a couple of other ones that really, you know, increase the power of the congregation, and it's a very effective thing to do. So, all right, what's the next thing you want to talk about?
Well, there is so much more we could cover, but we're going to leave it for another podcast.
We're gonna leave it for another
We
podcast.
are.
Okay, we're chatting.
Gonna go to bed so these good people can go home, right? As our good friend would say.
We're gonna go to bed so these good people can go home, right?
It's
all
been
right.
wonderful as always talking with you. Thank you again for joining us.
Mm.
And we look forward to the next time that we're doing it, right?
Yeah, you want to do our send off?
Yeah.
All right, let me push the button first. Which one was our? Is it that one? It's that one.
I think it's this.
No, it's this one.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. I love this song, by the way. It's a really
He
fun
jams
song.
out all the time.
Yes, I wanted that. There's a reason why we have different music, but we'll get into that later.
So for
Okay,
now,
so may God bless you,
may God bless America.
and may God bless
This
this
American
American
family.
family.
Have a great night.
Bye, y'all.